Coming back with Wesch, Lesson 5, Part 2, we are still talking about the state, the coercive state. And my thing in the classroom usually is someone sitting in the classroom, and I say, what would happen if you just sat there and you decided not to leave? And so class is taking place in the afternoon, and a lot of times students sit there in the class and keep doing their homework. What would happen if they just kept sitting there and evening classes had finished? It's around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and the security guard comes, and what would the security guard say to them? And they say, oh, the security guard would say you have to leave now, and I would say, no, I'm not leaving. Um, and so the student is not threatening anyone. They're not being obnoxious. They're not being violent. They're just sitting there and refusing to leave. And what would the security guard be able to do in terms of coercion? Nothing, right? Because a security guard is a private individual who can't probably make physical contact with the student except in very exceptional cases. Um, and so the security guard would probably call the police. Middletown police would come, and they would have guns on their belts, and they would have the right to physically contact you. And so probably what would happen is that they would say, look, you got to leave. You can't stay here. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Um, and the student would say, "No, I'm staying here." And so now we would see the coercive power of the state in the person of the police officer. Two of them would get on either side of you. They would push you out of the seat and into the onto the ground, handcuff you, and then arrest you. Right? So you're being taken into custody. That means your freedom of movement is being curtailed by the police. Because you wouldn't move voluntarily, they're going to move you involuntarily. You're being moved against your will. You're being forced into a let me get the big screen on here so you can get the whole thing. Being moved against your will. You're being taken into custody. Your freedom of movement is being curtailed coercively. You didn't want to do this, but you're being forced into it. They'll put you in the back of the police car. They'll drag you out. If you don't walk, they'll hold on to either side of you and walk you out, up the stairs, out the door. The police car is sitting there. They'll put you in the backseat of the police car. And then probably because it's simple trespassing, it's really not worth it for Miami University to charge you with trespassing, or for the court system to deal with this. They'll just take you up to the top of the hill as soon as they hit a public sidewalk. Stop the car, get you out, say, look, you can't go home. Uh, you can go wherever you want. You don't have to go home, but you gotta stay on public property from here on out. No going on. I mean, technically the campus is something like public property, but it's under the private control of Miami security out of regular business hours. So yeah, so then you're done, right? But it's a real question about the power of the state. There's no other. Um, we say, oh, that's just the police in the city, but really, there's nothing like that in any tribal chiefdom or band society. They just don't have that. There's no way. There's no police force. There's no way you can coerce anyone to do anything. Everything is voluntarily. If someone doesn't want to do something, they just say, no, I'm not going to do it. And you've got two options. You can say, okay, fine, stay, or you can say, no, you can't stay here anymore. We're kicking you out. You got to go over there and do your lawlessness, but you can't do it here. But there's no social sanction for that kind of violent action, either to take someone's property, as is done here in terms of fine, or even taxation. Taxation is taking someone's property legally, right? You can't do it legally out there in the real world of humanity prior to about 5,000 years ago. Um, you can't take you can't tax someone's property. You can't take it in a fine, and you definitely can't limit their freedom. Yeah, people get in a fight, right? Someone punches someone else, or someone traps someone else in the house. But yeah, that's never ever legal. It's only once we get the state that we can say, oh no, that was a great idea. Yeah, definitely. Stick them in that house and keep the door locked, and they can't go anywhere. That's great, right? No, no, not in the real world of humanity. Not until they came up with this crazy thing called a coercive state 5,000 years ago. Okay, So that's coercive politics, social stratification. Yeah, we talked all about this. We'll come back to this. Private property ownership. Yeah, this is another weird one. And when we talk about private ownership, we're not talking about private property as in movable property. We're not talking about someone who has maybe a bow and arrow that they made, and they made that bow, and so then they don't want other people to use it. Yeah, I mean, you can control that. I guess it's your stuff. But what we're talking about is real property, is real estate, is land. So if you have this land, uh, can other people use it? Of course, under ordinary conditions. And it sort of clamps down. So with banned society, yeah, everything's public. There's no control at all. Once you get to tribal society, then there's a little more control, limited to the community itself, the tribe. Um, can members of the local village can say outsiders can't use this land, outsiders can't do it, but only members of our group can do it, but anyone in the group can go out and use that land once they sort of work it out with the others. um, then once you get up into um, the state, then you have actual individuals saying this is my land and I control it and nobody else can use it. My great example of this is Powhatan. Let's see, New York, New Amsterdam Beads. So a lot of people don't know this story, but the the Beads that bought Manhattan. This is a little bit of history that um, that Peter Minuit bought Manhattan Island for beads, and I don't know, for like $14 or something worth of glass beads. You can, if you look at older history books, I don't think the newer history books talk about it so much because they're not doing the whole nationalist historiography work for the American government anymore. But back in the day when I was a kid and I would use these American materials, a lot of times they were older ones, and they would always talk about, yeah, Manhattan was sold, the entire island of Manhattan was sold for $14 worth of glass beads. Ha ha! Look at those people. So I always ask the question to my students: when we had that happen, when Manhattan was sold for beads, was it actually who got taken advantage of? Who got the look at my hair here? Who got taken? Did the Dutch get taken advantage of, or did the Native Americans get taken advantage of? And a lot of students will say, "Oh, totally the Native Americans, right? Because they sold their land for nothing." But I always propose, wait a minute, um, what about if I sold you the Golden Gate Bridge for $3,000? You can actually give me $3,100 bills, and I give you a title for yeah, if you can't sell something, then the person who's buying something that can't be privately traded wins. I always try the air, right? The air in this room. If I walk up to one of you in the classroom and say, "Give me $100. Here, take this $100 and let me breathe the air for another 30 minutes," and somebody would look at the $100 bill and say, "Yeah, yeah, definitely, I'll take that. You got it, man. You got the air. Keep breathing." Right? Who gets taken advantage of? It's the person who believes that you can buy and sell something that is beyond the bounds of private ownership. And so obviously when the Dutch walk up and they say, "How much do you want for the land?" and one Native American says, "He wants to buy the land." And the guy's like, "Really? You can't buy land." Yeah, I know. What are we going to tell him? Uh, sure, take it. Yeah, whatever, idiots. And so they go ahead. They're like, "Yeah, you can buy the land, definitely." And it's only as a result. Oh goodness, my phone is ringing. Sorry about that, but we are not stopping because we're just barging straight through. No bend, no curve, as they say. So yeah, basically, it was only after the Dutch bought the land that the um, Native Americans realized, oh, they're serious. They're going to put up walls around it and say we can't go on it. Wow. We never thought of that before. And so what if I turn around with some technology that can take all the air out of the room and say, thank you so much, push the button, and all of a sudden everyone in the room is gasping and lying on the floor. You guys look pretty stupid. So it's all about technology. Who invented this technology of private property ownership where I just put up a wall and say no one can use this except me personally? It's insane, right? Nobody believed that until someone actually tried it in Mesopotamia, 5,000 years ago. And it was like, dude, why didn't we think of that? But it's a horrible thing. You keep saying, I own this land and no one else can use it. It's ludicrous, right? Until someone actually tried it. And we build our entire economy on it. Something to think about.